In our planet, there are places so huge and extreme, where keeping millenary traditions such as sharing a wife with travelers, living in temperatures below 50 degrees below zero, or being the country with the highest number of single women in the world, becomes real. And what would you think if I told you that, in this country, there are mothers who let babies sleep in the street with freezing temperatures to make them stronger? This place exists and it's called Russia, and you will probably find it impossible to define it in one or a few words. If you think of Russia, probably your mind has thought of the cold, or words like vodka or Putin have clouded your mind. But as you will see, Russia is much more incredible than all this. Get ready to travel through Russia and get to know such extreme realities as containing the coldest villages, the longest train line, the most dangerous prisons in the world, or the largest number of single women on the planet. You will find it hard to believe that in this country, such incredible things happen as the fashion of using ambulances as cabs to avoid traffic for millionaires, having a president who was a spy for the KGB, or that this is where she has lived for decades. The person recognized as the most remote and lonely person on the planet. Do not miss this new video of uncensored world to know Russia as you had never imagined before. Let's get started. To get to know better the most remote, wild, and amazing places and traditions in Russia, and its most incredible curiosities, it is good to start by briefly discovering the geography and recent history of Russia. In this way, it is easier to better understand the incredible reality of regions like Siberia and its terrible prisons known as gulags, villages like Oymyakon, recognized as the coldest place on Earth, or regions like Chukotka, a place full of Eskimos that maintain millenary traditions as surprising as sharing wives with visitors. Russia is the largest country in the world and spans 2 continents, Europe and Asia, covering a total area of approximately 17 million square kilometers. It borders 16 countries, including Finland, China, and North Korea, reflecting its vast territorial extension. Its geographical location gives it a unique climatic diversity in the world, ranging from Arctic regions in the north to subtropical areas in the south. Because of this, the temperature in Russia at different times of the year is the most variable in the world, ranging from 67 degrees Celsius below zero to more than 45 degrees Celsius. Thinking about the cold, there is a town called Oymyakon with the title of the coldest place in the world, having recorded a temperature below 67 degrees Celsius below zero. Due to this extreme climate, and in order to prepare its population, especially in these regions, Russia has a unique practice that will surely surprise you. Many Russian mothers and fathers in these areas often leave their babies outdoors for long periods of time, even in the middle of winter, so that they can get used to the cold. In this way, these parents usually wrap their babies well and place them in strollers outside the stores or premises, while shopping or doing chores, so that they can sleep or rest in contact with the cold air. This custom is based on the belief that controlled exposure to low temperatures strengthens children's immune systems, making them more resistant to illnesses and better prepared to face the harsh climate of the country. This mind-boggling climatic diversity also translates into a rich variety of landscapes, ranging from frozen tundras in regions such as Siberia to dense taiga and fertile agricultural lands. Russia's population, despite its enormous territorial extension, is estimated at around 146 million people, which places it among the most populated countries in the world, although its population density is one of the lowest globally, with only 8 inhabitants per square kilometer. This is due to the concentration of the population in the western regions of the country, especially in the European part, where cities such as Moscow and St. Petersburg are located, while vast areas in Siberia and the Far East remain sparsely populated. A mind-blowing and very striking fact that you may find interesting is that Russia is considered the country with the highest number of beautiful and single women in the world. Apart from all the natural and cultural beauty you are discovering, a good part of this beauty is reflected in its women. Russia is recognized worldwide as one of the countries with the most beautiful women, and this is supported by the constant success of Russian women in numerous international beauty pageants. But more than their beauty, there is an overwhelming statistical fact that highlights one of the major attractions of a part of tourism in the country, since Russia is considered to be the country with the most single women in the world. Different censuses show that the number of women in Russia is much higher than the number of men residing in the country. There are 73 million men in the census and 84 million women. In other words, there are more than 11 million more women than men. This gender inequality has led a large part of the female population to think about leaving the country in search of relationships. A curiosity of Russian women is that they like to dress up in elegant clothes no matter if they are going to the bakery or taking out the garbage from home. For them, it is always important to be well dressed and made up. This is one of the mottos of Russian women, as they believe that it is necessary to attract attention with their appearance and elegance in order to notice their inner beauty. Thinking about all this, we take this opportunity to ask you, would you like to get to know Russia and its women? This diversity between men and women in Russia has a lot to do with the recent past of the largest country on the planet. Knowing its history is fundamental to better understand the current reality of Russia, a country that has undergone great transformations over the centuries. Russia, with its vast territory and rich history, has long been one of the world's most influential powers. In the time of the Tsars, before the revolution of 1717, Russia was one of the largest and most powerful empires in the world, stretching from Eastern Europe to the Pacific. However, World War I and the subsequent Russian Civil War ushered in a period of instability that culminated in the creation of the Soviet Union in the year 1922. During the 20th century, Russia, as part of the Soviet Union, was at the center of some of the world's most important conflicts, including World War II and the Cold War. World War II had a devastating impact on the Russian population. The Soviet Union suffered enormous human losses, and millions of men perished on the front lines. These losses not only left a deep mark on society, but also contributed to a demographic imbalance that persists to this day, as you have seen, resulting in far more women than men in the country. In the late 1980s, the collapse of the Soviet Union ushered in a new era for Russia, marked by profound political, economic, and social changes. Today, Russia remains a nation with a complex historical legacy, where the past influences many aspects of modern life. In the global context, Russia plays a crucial role, not only because of its size and natural resources, but also because of its geopolitical influence. Despite its low population density, its ability to project power and its role in international organizations underline its importance on the world stage. In addition, its rich history and culture, influenced by multiple ethnicities and traditions, make Russia a unique and fascinating country on the world map. That is why Russia is much more than Putin, its president, or the current conflicts, a reality that makes this country one of the most beautiful in the world. Thinking about Putin, did you know that he started his career as a KGB spy? Well, Vladimir Putin began his career in the Soviet intelligence service, the KGB, equivalent to the American CIA in Russia, in the year 1975. During his time in the KGB, Putin was assigned primarily to counterintelligence work and was later sent to Dresden, East Germany. During his time in Germany, Putin worked on intelligence operations that included gathering information about the West and preventing defections. His time in this organization trained him in key skills such as discretion, strategic analysis, and loyalty to the power structure, characteristics that would define his political style in his future as president of Russia. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union, Putin returned to Russia and left the KGB in the year 1991, just before the agency was dissolved. Thereafter, he became involved in politics in the city of St. Petersburg, working for the mayor. His political career took off when, in 1999, then-President Boris Yeltsin appointed him prime minister. Putin quickly won Yeltsin's confidence, and when Yeltsin resigned on December 31, 1919, Putin became acting president. A few months later, he won the presidential election, beginning his long term in power to this day. Thinking about Putin's and Russia's power, it is good to know the center of the country's political and religious power known as the Kremlin. Although many believe that the word Kremlin is used as a synonym for the Russian parliament, it is not. Kremlin historically refers to a fortified city, and in fact there are around 20 Kremlins in Russia, although the most famous would be the vast fortified complex in the heart of Moscow, one of the most iconic symbols of Russia. Originally built as a medieval fortress in the 12th century, the Kremlin has been the center of political and religious power in Russia for centuries. Inside the Kremlin is the Great Kremlin Bell, which, weighing approximately 200 tons, is the largest bell in the world. However, despite its imposing size, it has never been rung due to a fracture that prevents it from being used. Within its walls are palaces, cathedrals, and government offices, including the official residence of the President of Russia. The Kremlin is not only a political center, but also a cultural and historical site, with museums housing priceless treasures, such as the crowns of the czars and Russian works of art. Its imposing architecture and history make it a place of power and one of the most important tourist destinations in Russia. Opposite the Kremlin stretches the Red Square, another iconic place in Moscow, the Russian capital. This square has witnessed some of the most crucial events in Russian history, from military parades in the Soviet era to contemporary political demonstrations. A place where history, politics, and culture converge, it offers a deep insight into Russian identity. Moscow, the capital of Russia, is the country's largest and most populous city, with a population of over 12 million. It is the political, economic, and cultural center of the nation, and its influence extends throughout the country. Moscow is a vibrant and dynamic city that blends the ancient with the modern. In addition to the Kremlin and Red Square, Moscow is home to an impressive array of theaters, museums, and parks. In addition to all this, another curiosity that few know about the Italian capital is that it is the second city in the world with the highest number of millionaires per number of inhabitants, after New York. A curiosity much less surprising than the one that associated these super-rich with a unique extravagance in the world, since, due to the terrible traffic of this great city, for a time, among these millionaires it became fashionable to rent ambulances to be able to move quickly around the city. It is probably hard for you to believe this reality, but as you can see, Russia is one of the most amazing places on the planet. Moscow also stands out for its Stalinist architecture, with its 7 sisters, imposing skyscrapers that dominate the city skyline, and its metro system, considered one of the most beautiful in the world. Among its skyscrapers, Moscow boasts the tallest skyscraper in all of Eurasia. This huge building is called the Federation Tower and has a height of 374 meters. The Federation Tower is part of the Moscow International Business Center, also known as Moscow City, an area of modern skyscrapers that symbolizes the economic growth and ambition of the Russian capital. Regarding the Moscow Metro, it is recognized as one of the most famous and beautiful in the world. It was built during the Soviet era as a people's palace, with stations adorned with sculptures, marble, and luxurious decorations, so much so that 44 of them are considered World Heritage Sites by UNESCO. The subway transports more than 10 million people a day, with a network that has expanded since its inauguration in 1935, reaching 340 kilometers and more than 200 stations, being the 5th longest subway in the world. In addition, during World War II, its stations served as air raid shelters, and some were designed to protect against nuclear attacks. Thinking of carriages, trains, and railway lines, Russia is world-renowned for hosting the longest railway line on the planet, the Trans-Siberian Railway. This impressive route stretches 9,289 kilometers from the city of Moscow to the Pacific coast city of Vladivostok. The line is so enormous that the Trans-Siberian crosses 8 time zones, crosses 16 major rivers, including the Volga and the Amur, and passes through vast regions ranging from the European plains to the Ural Mountains and the Siberian steppes. The entire journey takes approximately 7 days without interruption and offers breathtaking views of diverse landscapes, from boreal forests to crystal-clear lakes such as Baikal, the world's deepest. The region of Siberia where the route of this huge railway line ends and contains the beautiful Lake Baikal is probably one of the most extreme and difficult places for life on the entire planet, a region that is home to the coldest people on the planet you will soon meet. But it is nonetheless a habitable and inhabited place, with mysteries and realities so fascinating as to make this a destination and a unique place in the world. It is known worldwide for its extensive natural landscapes, its extreme climate, and its unique history and culture, due to its location in one of the most remote corners of the planet. It has an area of no less than 13.1 million square kilometers, or in other words, it is as big as Mexico and Brazil. But despite this, its population is only 40 million inhabitants, 70% of whom live in urban areas. Siberia is so huge that it occupies about 76% of the total area of Russia. But despite its size, its climate and living conditions are so extreme that it has one of the lowest population densities in the world, only 3 inhabitants per square kilometer. This is probably the reason why it was decided many years ago to create a huge prison in Siberia, far away from the world. You are probably thinking, how is it possible that in this region so remote and ruthless for life, a habitable place like one of these prisons could be created? The answer goes back centuries, when the Russian regime decided to create there the most hostile and far-from-life prison, a prison called Gulag. Going into the detail of the Gulag, the most deadly and remote prison, it is important to understand that the word Gulag is an acronym in Russian meaning Main Directorate of Correctional Labor Camps. It was during the Soviet regime that Siberia became synonymous with suffering and oppression. In order to punish political dissidents and those considered a threat to the regime, the Gulag was established in remote Siberia. Thousands of people were sent to these forced labor camps, where they faced inhumane conditions and backbreaking work in an unforgiving environment. The creation of the Gulag was not only motivated by political reasons, but also by the need to exploit Siberia's vast natural resources. Gulag prisoners were used to build roads, railways, and other infrastructure under extremely harsh conditions. But beyond its official purpose, the Gulag became a place of terror and despair, where life had little value, and death was a constant companion. Over the years, the Gulag has spawned numerous mysteries and legends, and in recent times, it has also been known for the death of one of its most famous prisoners, a Russian oppositionist, lawyer, and politician named Alexei Anatolyevich Navalny. Apart from Navalny's recent demise, the Siberian forests are said to be full of mass graves where the remains of thousands of forgotten prisoners lie. There is also talk of ghosts roaming the abandoned camps, seeking justice for the unjustly condemned. These stories feed the aura of mystery surrounding the Gulag, reminding us of the depths of human cruelty and the resilience of the human spirit. Siberia's extreme climate is one of the most remarkable and challenging features of this region. With long winters and short but intense summers, Siberia experiences extreme thermal amplitude throughout the year. Here are some key aspects of Siberia's climate and how it affects life in the region. Its climate is so extreme that the recognized coldest place in the world, a small village called Oymyakon, is located here, with temperatures that defy human endurance. Oymyakon is also known as the Pole of Cold, and it has everything to do with its extreme climate, as this remote location has registered historical records of up to 72 degrees below zero, making it an extreme symbol of Siberia's unforgiving nature in the world. In the midst of this frozen landscape, the people of Oymyakon have forged a life adapted to the extreme conditions, where community warmth and traditional survival techniques are fundamental to face the rigors of the Siberian winter. For the people of Siberia, life in such an extreme climate requires continuous adaptation and exceptional resilience. Thinking about this resilience and capabilities, it is good to know another curiosity that makes Siberia unique, apart from the Gulag and its conditions. Siberia is not a country in itself, but a vast region stretching across much of northern Asia, mainly within Russia. Siberia is so huge that it occupies 77% of the entire surface of Russia, or more than 13 million square kilometers. To visualize its magnitude, Siberia could fit several South American countries, such as Brazil, Argentina, and Peru combined, and there would still be room left over. However, despite being the largest, Siberia has a very low population density, with only 3 inhabitants per square kilometer, since few dare to live there. Believe it or not, Siberia is also the place where the person considered to be the most hermit of the planet has lived for many years, a title earned by a Siberian woman named Agafia Likova, chosen as the most hermit in the world, after living almost 84 years in the mountains of Siberia, isolated by more than hundreds of kilometers from her neighbors. The woman has no electricity or transportation, and survives by feeding on the potatoes and vegetables she grows. She also has a fishing net and a goat that she milks daily. Likova and her family fled Stalin's religious persecution in 1936. Thereafter, they had 4 children and lived in isolation from the rest of the world. The isolation was so great that the woman spent World War II without knowing what had happened. In 1988, she had her first encounter with people outside the family, a group of Soviet geologists who told her that Stalin had died. In 1981, Agafia's 3 brothers died, and in 1998 her father also died. From that time on, the woman lived in the company of Erafei Serov, a geologist who moved in a few meters from her house. Erafei died in 2015, and she still lives in her mountain hut in total isolation from the world. It seems surprising, and for us also hallucinating, that a person can live away from the rest of the world, and even more so in a place where snow and ice seem to be a constant that can make life very complicated. Before we continue, we take the opportunity to ask you, do you think you could live alone in the depths of Siberia or in villages like Oymyakon? If so, how long do you think you would last? Pause the video and leave us your comment. Doing so is the best way for you to support Uncensored World and help us keep working to bring you the best content. So, thank you. Lake Baikal, known as the Pearl of Siberia, is the most precious jewel of this remote region. With its crystal clear water and mysterious depths, this lake is the oldest and deepest in the world, harboring unique biodiversity and breathtaking landscapes. In winter, Baikal becomes a magical landscape, with its frozen waters creating crystal clear ice formations that are a delight to the eyes. This lake is the largest freshwater reservoir in the world, holding 1/5 of the freshwater reserves of the entire planet Earth. This lake is also the deepest freshwater reservoir in the world, reaching a depth of more than 1,640 meters, which would be equivalent to 2 Burj Khalifa skyscrapers, the tallest building in the world with more than 820 meters, stacked one on top of the other. Another unique place in the world that exists in Siberia are the Ural Mountains. These mountains separate Europe from Asia and are a mountain range of breathtaking beauty. With rugged peaks, deep valleys, and vast forests, the Urals are a paradise for hikers, climbers, and explorers. In addition to its breathtaking scenery, the Urals are also home to a rich history and culture, with ancient settlements and traditions dating back centuries. In addition to Lake Baikal and the Ural Mountains, Siberia also boasts one of the most fascinating forests on the planet that many consider to be an endless forest. This is because the Siberian taiga is the largest forest in the world, stretching across vast expanses of Siberia with its endless coniferous trees. This unique ecosystem, also known as boreal forest, stretches across almost 60% of the country, covering more than 10 million square kilometers. It is home to an incredible variety of wildlife, including bears, lynx, moose, elk, and more. The changing colors of the taiga throughout the seasons, from the lush green of summer to the brilliant white of winter, create an unparalleled visual spectacle. Another of Siberia's most unknown but also surprising places is the city of Norilsk, recognized by some scientists as the most polluted city in the world, and also the northernmost city with more than 100,000 inhabitants on the planet. This city, located above the Arctic Circle, is so polluted because of its industry. Its mining and metal smelting industry, which produces nickel, copper, and palladium, has generated alarming levels of air pollution, with the release of sulfur dioxide and other toxins that have devastated the natural environment and affected the health of its inhabitants. It may seem incredible, but it is true that, in such a remote and wild place, there can exist the city considered by many as the most polluted city on the planet. Apart from Moscow, Siberia, and the geographical beauty of the country, St. Petersburg is the second largest city in Russia, and is also considered by many to be the most beautiful in the country. Founded by Peter the Great in the year 1703, St. Petersburg was the imperial capital of Russia for more than 2 centuries, and is known for its elegant architecture and network of canals that have earned it the nickname of the Venice of the North. Among its jewels are the Winter Palace, which houses the Hermitage Museum, one of the largest art collections in the world. St. Petersburg is also famous for its white nights during the summer, when the sun barely sets and the city comes alive with festivals and cultural events. Its combination of history, art, and natural beauty makes it a must-see destination. Thinking about culture and traditions, it is good to know in more detail one of the most extraordinary places on the planet, its customs and its people. This Russian region is Chukotka, probably the coldest and most remote inhabited region on the planet. A place with such extreme curiosities as those of its Eskimo inhabitants, who maintain intimate relations without taking off their clothes and even share wives among the men of the community, or with visitors, in order to try to survive as a species. A region where the cold can be so intense that couples prefer to have sex without taking off their clothes during the harshest months, and where, due to the frozen ground and permafrost, the dead are usually kept in garages or basements until summer arrives, and they can be buried. As you will now understand, the Chukotka region is probably the place where man finds the limits of the earth and survival. A place shrouded in legends and mystery, where the wild nature makes only the most resistant can live. To enter the remote lands of Chukotka from Moscow, it is necessary to travel more than 6,000 kilometers to the northeast, crossing vast landscapes to reach this region, probably one of the most inhospitable and mysterious in Russia and the world. In this area, where the Arctic wind blows with relentless force and temperatures can drop below -50 degrees Celsius, the land is in a state of perpetual glaciation. This continuous freezing makes burying corpses in this region an extremely difficult task. To understand it better, it is good to understand that Chukotka is dominated by permafrost, a layer of soil that remains permanently frozen, sometimes to depths of several meters. This frozen ground is so hard that digging graves in it is virtually impossible without heavy machinery, and in many areas, even that technology is not enough. The permafrost has led the people of this region of the world to adopt alternative methods of handling their dead. Thus, for centuries, some communities have built crypts on the surface of the ground or elevated structures, where the bodies are placed in coffins that remain out of direct contact with the frozen ground. These crypts are designed to withstand extreme weather, protecting the remains while honoring the deceased. While other settlers in this region have resorted to practices such as temporarily storing bodies in places like garages, basements, or special facilities during the winter until the ground softens enough in summer to allow for a burial, using cemeteries located in areas where permafrost is shallower or non-existent to facilitate burial. Chukotka, although one of the least known and inhabited regions in the world, has an area of over 700,000 square kilometers. being larger than countries like Spain or France, but is home to a population of barely 50,000 people. The people of Chukotka, mainly Eskimos, not only share cultural ties with other Eskimo groups such as the Inuit of regions like Alaska or Greenland, but also many unique customs such as offering their women to visitors that you will soon learn about. The entire population of Chukotka is a mosaic of ethnic groups, mostly indigenous, who have learned to survive and thrive in one of the most extreme environments on the planet. The majority ethnic group is the Chukchi, with some 15,000 members. Despite their isolation, freezing cold, and limited presence of modernity, the people of Chukotka are known for their unique hospitality, offering a unique welcome in this inhospitable part of the world. One of the most striking characteristics of ethnic groups such as the Chukchi is their hospitality and openness to visitors. Foreigners, tourists, or visitors are received with the warmth characteristic of the region, being offered abundant food and drink, and sometimes lodging in their traditional yarangas, constructions designed to withstand the extreme cold, accompanied by the hospitality and affection of their women. This welcome not only reflects their kindness, but also their willingness to share their life and culture, and even more adaptive motives that you will now learn about in more detail. Life in this region also includes a surprising flexibility in matters of marriage, where interaction with visitors of other nationalities is not uncommon, and Chukchi women, knowledgeable of their traditions and abilities, can show an amazing sense of independence and openness to new experiences. These Eskimo women, according to their traditions, are accustomed to being so hospitable to visitors that they often even share their beds with strangers and tourists, always with the consent of their husbands. This practice, which is more hospitable than intimate in nature, is deeply rooted in the customs of the Eskimo peoples of Chukotka and has endured for centuries. It may seem strange to many, but to Eskimo societies, this symbol of hospitality makes much more sense than we think. For years, anthropologists and scholars have investigated these traditions in depth, traditions that are also found in Inuit communities in regions such as Alaska, Greenland, and Canada, coming to the conclusion that due to the remoteness and harsh conditions of these areas, this practice was intended to strengthen the community and perpetuate these societies. These practices facilitated the possibility of pregnancy among Eskimo women, which not only contributed to repopulate sparsely inhabited areas, but also to ensure the continuity of society by providing more hands for essential activities such as hunting and other collective tasks, fundamental for the survival of these tribal communities. And that is why even today, in the 21st century, Eskimo societies in this region of the planet continue to perform practices as strange and crazy for most, like this one. As you can see, the extreme geography and climate of this region has led the inhabitants to adopt surprising customs such as these, even with regard to intimate relationships. In Chukotka, it is also common for couples to have intimate relations without taking off their clothes, due to the relentless cold. This practice is due to the need to preserve body heat in an environment where exposure to cold air, even for brief moments, can be dangerous. Traditional garments are designed specifically for these conditions, with strategic holes that allow intimate contact without losing protection against the cold. Another of the most incredible and beautiful places in Russia is the Kamchatka Peninsula, located in the far east of the country, a true natural paradise full of contrasts and geographical wonders. This remote corner of the country offers a fascinating mix of active volcanoes, bubbling geysers, rugged fjords, and soothing hot springs. Its landscape attracts adventurers and nature lovers in search of a unique experience, where wild beauty and tranquility meet in perfect harmony. Kamchatka is a privileged destination for those who wish to explore the wild beauty of the natural world. With a dozen active volcanoes, some of them snow-capped for much of the year, the volcanic landscape offers breathtaking views and opportunities for hiking and exploration. Geysers gushing from the hot earth add a surreal touch to the environment, while hot springs provide a warm and relaxing retreat after a day of exploration in this rugged terrain. In addition to its stunning geography, Kamchatka is also home to a surprising Buddhist presence, as it has a small but significant Buddhist community. This community, largely made up of descendants of migrants from nearby Mongolia and Tibet, has established temples and monasteries in the region. These sacred spaces offer an oasis of spirituality and calm in the middle of the wild and exuberant landscape of this incredible country. A country as surprising as its curiosities? One that few know is that, contrary to what many think, the most consumed drink in Russia is not vodka, but tea. Tea has a long history in Russian culture, dating back to the 17th century when it was introduced from China. Over the centuries, tea has become an essential part of everyday life. Its consumption is a social activity in Russia, and is enjoyed both in moments of relaxation and at family gatherings. Few people know that the iconic video game Tetris was created in Russia in the year 1984 by the Russian engineer Alexei Pajitnov, and even fewer could imagine that the creator of one of the most played video games in the history of mankind did not receive a single dollar until many years after its creation. But this was the story. Alexei Pajitnov designed Tetris as a personal challenge, inspired by games from his childhood. He chose the name Tetris because the word tetra, which means four in Greek, referred to the game's four-block pieces. Although Tetris quickly became a global phenomenon, few know that its creator, Pajitnov, did not receive a single dollar for his creation initially, as the rights to the game were licensed by the Soviet company Elorg, a Soviet company created to oversee the foreign distribution of the content. After years of conflicts over the rights to Tetris, involving companies such as Atari, Sega, and Nintendo, Pajitnov finally moved to the United States, where he continued his career in video game development and worked for Microsoft. And it was not until the year 1996, after the dissolution of the company Elorg, when he could finally claim his recognition as the true creator of Tetris and get his millionaire benefits for having been and still being one of the most loved and played video games in the world. As you have seen, getting to know Russia has many similarities with Tetris and its different levels, creating a real challenge in which beauty and surprising curiosities come together to shape one of the most enigmatic places on the planet. A country so huge that it is the place in the world with the largest number of time zones, hosting up to 11 different time zones, which means that when it is noon in cities like Kaliningrad, it is already midnight in regions like Kamchatka. We hope you have enjoyed discovering Russia, one of the most inhospitable and wildest regions of the planet, but also the most beautiful and mysterious, knowing traditions and curiosities that would leave more than one speechless. If so, don't forget to leave us a comment telling us what surprised you the most about Russia, and a nice like. You know that doing so is the best way you have to support Uncensored World to continue working to bring you videos as interesting as this one every week. And don't miss the video that follows this one to continue enjoying the wonders, mysteries, and curiosities that make unique this beautiful planet called Earth. Click on it, you will enjoy it.